Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Police confirm death of 2 persons in Agbo community of Benue State by suspected herdsmen. Senate frowns on the state of insecurity in the country, asks the president to stop the carnage across the country. Leadership of the Senate suspends one of its own, Senator Ovie Omoagege, for 90 legislative days over his remarks on the amendment of the 2010 Electoral Act. And French President Emmanuel Macron announces he has proof chemical weapons were used on Syrian city of Douma by its own President Bashar al-Assad. ChannelsTV.com has more information for you, and on youtube.com/channelsweb you can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app has an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app and then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and then follow the instructions. The Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, will on July the 6th, 2018, find out if he'll face trial on 3 out of the 18 charges brought against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The Supreme Court has fixed the date for judgment in the appeal filed by the Senate President, challenging the decision of the appeal court, which directed that he should face trial. Hearing in the appeal and cross-appeal filed by parties in the case took place today, after which the court adjourned. Our correspondent Amaka reports.
On the 12th of December 2017, the Apex Court ordered the Code of Conduct Tribunal to try the Senate President, Dr. Olubukola Saraki, on 3 of the 18-count charge of false declaration of assets and money laundering case brought against him by the EFCC. The Senate President, although not present at the court, is asking the Apex Court to quash the judgment. He contends that no prima facie case has been established against him. As such, the Apex Court should uphold the ruling on no case submission by the CCT on the 14th of June 2017.
When you're saying no case submission, amongst the reasons that you might say no case submission is that the ingredients of the offense, they were not sufficiently proved that requires the defendants to put in a defense. So that was the basis that we asked the Supreme Court to uphold that our no case submission, which the tribunal had upheld earlier.
But the prosecuting counsel, Mr. Rotimi Jacobs, who filed a cross appeal, wants the Supreme Court to not only uphold the judgment of the appeal court, but also quash the no case submission upheld by the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Indeed, he asked the court that the Senate President be ordered to enter a defense on all 18 counts preferred against him.
The Court of Appeal allow 4 count or 3 count or so, and can 4 to 6. So as a result of that, we appeal against the other count that were not allowed by the Court of Appeal, and they appeal against those 3 counts that were allowed by the Court of Appeal. So that's the basis for us. It's just for them, for the Supreme Court to decide whether the Court of Appeal is right or wrong.
The Supreme Court judgment is highly anticipated, as it will determine the next step in this 3-year-old trial. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
And staying with legal matters, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Dele Belgore, and a former Minister of Planning, Professor Abubakar Sulaiman, have been ordered by a federal high court sitting in Lagos to open their defense in a 450 million naira alleged fraud suit filed against them by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The judge gave the directive in a ruling on 2 separate applications for no case submission filed by the 2 defendants. They had argued that the EFCC had not successfully linked them to the offences for which they are being charged. Justice Rilwan Aikawa ruled that after a careful study of the prosecution's case, he had formed an opinion that the defendants should enter their defense. The judge has also directed that the EFCC file a formal response to the defendant's application and adjourned further hearing to April the 30th. And the Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to produce its last witness or close its case against a former governor of Oyo State, Rashidi Ladoja. Justice Muhammad Idris gave the order after he rejected a request by the EFCC for a 3-week adjournment to enable it produce the witness said to be an officer of the commission who investigated the case 10 years ago. Former Governor Ladoja and one of his aides, Wahid Akombi, are facing 8 charges, including the laundering of 4.7 billion naira and unlawful conversion of funds belonging to the Oyo State government. At today's proceedings, the EFCC lawyer Femi Olabisi urged the court to adjourn the case to May the 2nd to enable him produce the witness. This request was opposed by the defense counsel, who urged the court to instead close the prosecution's case. The judge, however, said he could not adjourn the case beyond 7 days as allowed by the substantive law and subsequently fixed April the 20th for the next hearing. Away from legal matters now, 2 weeks after the brutal murder of over 30 people in a bank robbery in Offa, Kwara State, some youth have staged a rally to mourn the victims. The youths marched through the streets of Offa town before stopping at the local government secretariat, where they demanded that the government should expedite action to arrest the perpetrators. Meanwhile, the state governor, Abdul Fattah Ahmed, has offered assurances to residents to beef up security in the state, asking them not to politicize the killings.
April 5, a day residents of Offa in Kwara State will not forget too soon. On that fateful day, daredevil armed robbers stormed the town, attacking banks and a police station, killing over 30 people, including policemen. It's over 1 week, and youth of the town have taken the streets to mourn their own. Armed with placards with various inscriptions, the youth marched to the local government secretariat to voice their frustration. They demand improved security.
To pass the morning message to the whole world, to see how we have suffered from this bloody attack.
The security in Offa, in the entire Kwara State, is not enough. We need government to do something on it.
In fact, some of the residents are even specific about the kind of security they desire.
We want the government to use the between Offa and the Erinle land, which is therefore buffer zone for military zone.
The state governor is not unaware of their pain. He has given assurances of tighter security in the state.
Specifically, additional armored personnel carriers will be provided to beef up the security in Offa and strategic locations in states. I assure Kwarans and Nigerians that we will do everything humanly possible within our power to ensure that the good people of Offa and indeed Kwara State never experience such a tragedy again.
Beyond mere promises, these youth, as well as residents of the state, would be hoping that action will be taken and they wouldn't have to experience this kind of tragedy again.
Well, from there we cross over to Abuja. Here's Gloria Umezuke. Gloria?
Hello, Ijoma.
Hi.
A report by Amnesty International reveals a spike in the number of death sentences in Nigeria, with over 2,000 inmates currently on death row, making it the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. It says Nigeria also carried out the highest number of death sentences in the sub-Saharan region on 621 persons. The director of Amnesty International Nigeria, Mrs. Osai Ojigo, confirmed this at the release of Amnesty International's 2017 Global Report on Death Sentences and Executions. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
There has been a drop globally in the use of the death penalty in 2017. 993 executions in 23 countries, a 4% drop from the 1,032 executions in 2016 and a 39% drop from the 1,634 executions recorded in 2015. It seems Nigeria is going against this grain, although no actual executions were carried out in 2017. According to the Nigerian Prison Service, 621 people were sentenced to death. 17 pardons were granted. 28 people under the sentence of death were exonerated. 2,285 people were on death row, and 68 death sentences were commuted. Addressing journalists at the presentation of its 2017 report on death sentences and executions, officials of Amnesty International Nigeria explain why they insist on the abolition of the death sentence.
Amnesty International is calling on the Nigerian government to establish a legally binding official moratorium. Not a declaration, but something that has the force of law.
Questions which arise on the issue of death sentences in Nigeria permeate around the belief in the rights of criminals, the reform capabilities of our prison system, trust in our justice system, the class issue, where it is insinuated that mostly individuals from the lower echelons of society receive the harshest sentences, and the ultimate question on the death sentence being an adequate deterrent to criminal behavior.
Death should be should be something that only God determines.
Death penalty is a serious thing, you know, in the law right now, and I feel like it's something that's necessary.
Criminal justice system, not only about death penalty, weighs heavily against the poor.
Divergent views on the death penalty amongst Nigerians, which is an improvement if we look at how we used to be in the 80s and the 90s, where it was believed that if you lived by the sword, you should die by the sword. For a society that is still learning to put a premium on human life, Amnesty International has a whole lot more work to do to sell the idea of abolishing the death penalty to the average Nigerian. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
The House of Representatives is asking President Muhammadu Buhari to suspend the payment of $16.9 million to two Nigerian lawyers involved in the recovery of $321 million being part of the Abacha loot. The House says it is aware that the Swiss lawyer, Mr. Enrico Monfrini, had since been paid by the federal government, and the services of the Nigerian lawyers were no longer required. Well, Governor Ibikunle Amosun of Ogun State has asked all citizens to join hands with his administration to take the state from good to great. He says the natural resources and human capital endowments in Ogun State are critical factors to sustainable development in the state. Governor Amosun made the call at a public forum in Abeokuta, the state capital, where the state civil society had a conversation with him, other stakeholders and citizens.
That is because we want to get as many people to be educated as possible. Because if they are not educated, they will be burdened onto themselves and by extension burden to the government. So an educated citizen, they are easily governed. They will be in sync with your ideas. If you tell them, oh, this is what we are doing, if we are able to achieve this, this will be the beneficial consequences or reward for all of us. Skill acquisition, technical and vocational schools, training, such that people, yes, once they are educated, it will not just be education that is running around for white-collar jobs. They will be employers of labor by themselves. So those areas we are doing. Closely followed education is health. We believe that, yes, if people are not healthy, just like our fathers will say, that health is wealth. So if you are not healthy, you won't even be in a position to contribute positively to anything. You will not even be useful to yourself. If you are not healthy, you can't be useful to others. We are improving and we will continue to do that.
When the news at 10 returns, we'll be taking a look at the challenges of the rail transport system in the country. That's in our big story. Let's join us again.